Big news from the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders have made it official. They're bringing back star pass rusher Malcolm Koonce on a one-year deal worth up to $12 million. This is a huge move, and I couldn't be more excited. Before we dive into the details, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss an update. All right, let's get into it. For years, I've been saying Koonce had the potential to be a game changer, and in 2023, he finally broke out. But just when things were getting good, he suffered an ACL injury. That setback meant we never got to see what the Raiders' defense could truly look like with a fully healthy lineup, Koonce, Crosby, Butler, and Wilkins all working together. But now, the Raiders are bringing Koonce back, and that means this defense could finally reach its full potential. Imagine the impact of a fully healthy defensive line. It could be a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. And let's be real. Before this signing, the Raiders had a big problem. They didn't have a 100% reliable pass rusher opposite of Max Crosby. Sure, Tyree Wilson is on the team, but let's be honest. So far, he hasn't lived up to expectations. He was a 7th overall pick, but he hasn't proven himself yet. And when you look at the talent that was picked right after him, like Jalen Carter and Darnell Wright, it's frustrating to think about what could have been. Now, with Koonce back, the Raiders don't have to panic in the draft and reach for a defensive end. Instead of making a desperate move, they can focus on drafting the best talent available. This signing gives them breathing room, and that's exactly what the team needs heading into the new season. So, what do you think? Are you excited about Malcolm Koonce coming back? Let me know in the comments. The Raiders just made a smart move. Bringing back Malcolm Koonce on a one-year $12 million deal is the best thing the Las Vegas Raiders could have done. This isn't just any contract. Koonce is betting on himself, proving that he's ready to dominate this season before aiming for a bigger deal next year. And honestly, it makes perfect sense for both Koonce and the Raiders. But before we break this down, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss any updates. All right, let's get into it. This move sets up something special. The Raiders could have the best defensive line in the entire NFL. And no, I'm not just saying that as a Raiders fan. I've watched hours of game tape from teams across the league, including the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a strong defensive line. But if the Raiders stay healthy, their lineup is even more dangerous. Of course, coaching plays a huge role. The Eagles have Vic Fangio, one of the smartest defensive minds in football. He can turn an average defense into a top 10 unit in just one season. But when you compare raw talent, the Raiders' defensive line is stacked. If they stay healthy, other teams better be ready. We already saw glimpses of this in 2023. In those final 9 games, offensive lines struggled to handle just Malcolm Koonce and Max Crosby together. These two were nearly unstoppable. And on top of that, Adam Butler was stepping up in a big way. Now add Christian Wilkins, one of the top defensive tackles in the league, and suddenly this Raiders defense looks nasty. Yes, the team lost Trayvon Moehrig and Robert Spillane, but they're building the right way. This defense is shaping up to be something special, and if they stay healthy, they could dominate in 2024. Smart moves or risky business. The Raiders' big decisions. The Raiders' latest roster moves have people talking, and for good reason. While some teams are throwing big money at safeties and linebackers, the Raiders are making smarter investments, and that's exactly how you build a winning team. But before we break it down, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss an update. Now, let's get into it. Look, paying a linebacker $12 million or a safety $17 million isn't smart business. These positions just don't impact the game the way a dominant defensive lineman does. A great safety. Sure, they're valuable, but at $7 to $8 million, not $17 million. The same goes for offensive guards. Paying $19 million for one? That's just not worth it. Now, compare that to Malcolm Koonce at $12 million. That's an absolute steal for the Raiders. Yes, it's only a one-year deal, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. If Koonce starts the season strong, say, 3, 4, or 5 great games, the Raiders could lock him in with a long-term extension. And let's be real, if Josh Sweat is getting around $17 million per year, why wouldn't Koonce? In those final 9 games last season, he looked like an even better pass rusher. But that's not the only move the Raiders made. With Trayvon Mullen gone, the team signed Jeremy Chinn, a versatile safety who just landed a 2-year, $16 million deal. At $8 million per year, that's great value. Chinn isn't the type of player who grabs 10 interceptions a season, but what he does bring is versatility. He's like a Swiss Army knife on defense, lining up all over the field. Last season, he played 470 snaps inside the box, but here's the crazy part. Only 14 of those were actually at safety. That tells you this guy isn't just another defensive back. He's a do-it-all playmaker who gives the Raiders' defense a ton of flexibility. Why the Raiders signed Jeremy Chinn, and what it means. The Raiders' latest signing, Jeremy Chinn, isn't just another safety. He's a true defensive Swiss Army knife. And when you look at how he played last season, it's clear the Raiders have a specific plan for him. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a big update. Now, let's break it down. Chinn isn't your traditional safety. Last season, while playing for the Commanders, he spent 470 snaps inside the box, which means he was playing more like a linebacker than a safety. But that's not all. He also lined up 106 times as an outside linebacker, positioning himself right on the edge, 3 yards outside the offensive tackle. This guy was everywhere, and it doesn't stop there. Chinn played deep safety, 369 snaps covering the deep field. Slot corner, 222 snaps shutting down receivers inside. On the line of scrimmage, rushing the quarterback. This level of versatility makes him a perfect fit for what the Raiders seem to be planning. Now, here's where things get interesting. The Raiders' defense is changing. They just lost Robert Spillane, Trayvon Mullen, and Nate Hobbs, 3 key pieces in the secondary and linebacker group. These guys were leaders, especially Spillane, who called plays on defense. Losing them suggests that Patrick Graham might be shifting his defensive scheme. Instead of sticking with players built for last year's system, the Raiders are bringing in someone like Chinn, who can line up anywhere on the field. Whether he plays safety, linebacker, or even on the defensive line, he gives the Raiders endless possibilities. Are the Raiders changing their defensive identity? Something big might be happening in Las Vegas, and most people aren't even talking about it yet. Before we break it all down, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss any major updates. Now, let's get into it. The Raiders' defense might not be Patrick Graham's anymore. Think about this. Pete Carroll's defensive system is very similar to Dan Quinn's, who is now the head coach of the Commanders. These two coached together in the past, and their schemes rely on speed, aggression, and versatility. Now, look at the players the Raiders are signing. They're bringing in versatile guys who can play multiple roles, just like Carroll and Quinn's system demands. Are the Raiders quietly switching to a Pete Carroll-style defense? We'll know for sure once they bring in more players. If we see more athletic, multi-position defenders joining the roster, it's a sign that big changes are coming. Look at Malcolm Koonce. He can rush the passer but also drop into coverage. Isaiah Pola-Mao is a safety, but he's big enough to play like a linebacker. And then there's Jeremy Chinn, who has lined up at safety, linebacker, and even defensive end. These aren't traditional one-position players. These are chess pieces. And here's something I noticed while watching Jeremy Chinn's tape. He's not a better overall safety than Trayvon Mullen, but he hits harder, plays with more energy, and is way more dangerous near the line of scrimmage. If the Raiders are moving toward a faster, more aggressive defense, Chinn might be exactly, are the Raiders redefining their defense? There's something big happening in Las Vegas, and it's time to pay attention. First off, let's talk about Jeremy Chinn. Is he a safety, or is he actually a linebacker in disguise? The way the Raiders are structuring their defense, Chinn might not play a traditional role at all. We already know he's a hard-hitting, aggressive defender, better at stopping the run and covering bigger tight ends than Trayvon Moehrig. But if we're being honest, Moehrig was the better overall safety, and the market reflected that. Moehrig got $17 million, while Chinn signed for just $8 million. So why bring in Chinn? Because the Raiders aren't just filling a hole, they're building a new system. What they need: a defensive shift is happening. Think about it. Some positions in football are system-dependent. A player can look elite in one system and completely fall off in another. That's exactly why guys like Daron Bland, a 5th or 6th round pick, can set interception records under Dan Quinn's scheme. The right system makes all the difference. Now, look at what the Raiders are doing. They're shifting their entire defensive approach, and Chinn is just one piece of that puzzle. But what about the rest of the secondary? They already have young guys like Devin Harper, Trey Taylor, and Isaiah Pola-Mao. These guys are wild cards. We don't know their full potential yet. So the question is, are the Raiders confident in this group? Or are they still looking to add another safety, maybe through the draft? Could Malaki Starks be the answer? If the Raiders do look to the draft, there's one name to watch: Malaki Starks. Starks is built like Chinn, plays with the same physicality, and sets the tone with his tackling. If the Raiders want a young enforcer in their secondary, he could be a perfect fit. But no matter what happens, one thing is clear: this isn't the same Raiders defense we saw last year. The team is getting smarter with their money, focusing on versatile players and building a system that fits their vision. So, what do you think? Are the Raiders making the right moves? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more Raiders updates.